Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, we're all back together again on this Friday. It's November 17th, 2017. A lot of 17s today, right? A lot of 17s. And let me tell you something. This is the Investigative Journal, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com, or you're listening to my YouTube presentations. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about two things. 3 ominous signals appeared before last financial crisis is appearing now. And Michael Snyder wrote a story about it. We're going to go through that. Secondly, I want to show you that there's a 100% chance. How can you have a 100% chance? When it's 100%, it's going to happen. That there will be a conflict with North Korea, and many people are going to perish. We're going to get into that as well. But anyway, my show yesterday drew a lot of attention regarding Jesuit futurism. And I got a couple emails that had no idea about it and said, thank you so much. I go to a Protestant church and I had no idea this exists. Well, now you do. Now you got your homework to do. Then I got a couple other emails regarding basically talking about their experience with the ecumenical movement, how they realized that their church has been infiltrated and they left the church. Very good. Okay, so these are the signs. When you see that, you just leave. Unless you want to be a part of the beast. It's that simple. So you can't just negotiate with the beast or take part of the story and then say, well, there's a lot of good going on here, so let's stay. No. When you realize that your church is teaching a false doctrine, and then somebody's going to say, how do you know it's false? Well, I know that the doctrine we're talking about, the futurism doctrine of the Antichrist, was created by the Jesuits, by the priest named Ribera, back during the time of the Protestant Reformation, and they came up with this bogus theory in order to stop Protestantism, stop protests, stop the idea that maybe you can find God without the Pope. Oh my God, they can't have that, can they? No, sir, they can't. So that story drew a lot of attention, and I'll get back to some of that. I found an alarming trend, though, on my show. And it's kind of like you can't, you're between a rock and a hard place. I like covering things away from the biblical stories as well. And I find when I do that, many of the Christian people don't listen. And then when I don't do stories about Christianity, the people that don't want to follow Christianity don't listen. So I'm trying to bring together this so that, one, I could get more listeners, which you really need as a radio host. Believe it or not, it's important. And secondly, I think there's a lot people can learn from both sides of the aisle. And that's why I do it. So a lot of times you're going to hear things that, it's not your typical Christian radio show. But then again, we do touch on subjects like the Vatican-led New World Order, which is huge, and how many people really get into that. I mean, people should just come to my show for that. But then again, YouTube has these, the internet and YouTube have these algorithms, and they can block listeners. That's for sure. With just the way they handle those algorithms. Very interesting. But anyway, I wanted to now get into 3 ominous signals appeared before last financial crisis. It's appearing right now. But before I do that, I got to tell you a real funny story. Well, it's not a funny story, but it's a very curious story about a dog and a man. And the dog is one of my little puppies, Jackie. And I have another one called Jill, Jack. Very unique. Well, I was going to name them Jack and Jill, but they both turned out to be females because I got them when they were real young. And saved their lives. And they live like queens now. Yes, they do. They live better than me. They get better medical care, get better food, they get better caring. And basically they sleep in a nice warm bed. Huh. I wonder whose bed that is. But anyway, it's no longer mine. But anyway, this is a good story. remember back we were talking about when I had to get my driver's license months ago, and I had to get an eye test, and so they gave me prescription glasses. And ever since I went to law school, my eyes started. I used to have 20/10 vision. Could have been a jet pilot if I wasn't afraid of jets, and flying. But my eyes are good enough for it. So anyway, they were 20/10, and now as I started law school, they started to get worse and worse and worse. And I never bought prescription glasses because my driver's license never ran out. Now it ran out, so I had to get a new driver's license, and they made me take an eye test, so I knew I wouldn't pass. So I went and got my eyes tested. By the way, they're very healthy eyes, they say, but I'm 20/80. That's terrible. So I didn't even see the board without glasses. So I brought I have two. I have reading glasses, which I have on right now, and then I also have driving distance glasses. I didn't want to get bifocals. So yesterday, I have a little car. Not going to tell you what kind, but it starts with an F. Okay, and I get back and I have a gravel driveway, right? And I wanted to look underneath it, thinking maybe there was an oil leak or something, which, by the way, there wasn't. And I have my glasses in my pocket. Now, I have one pair, and without them, I'm blind. Can't read, can't do anything. And maybe that's good, Maybe not reading this stuff is good. Forget about it. Just ignorance is bliss. I think tomorrow I'm going to wake up and forget everything I've done in my life and start a fresh slate. Wouldn't that be great? And wouldn't it be great if when you die you realize what your life was and then you come back as, you can have a second chance. I would like that. Imagine and you knew everything you did wrong the first time. Kind of like time traveling like I've been doing lately. I haven't gone on a trip since last week, and I'm rebuilding my go-kart so I can get a better landing. It's been very rough on me coming down on those time travels. People go, Greg, you're dreaming again. I said, it's not a dream. It's real. It's real if you believe it's real, right? So anyway, I'm under my car. I bend down, and because I was on rocks, guess what? I come into the house, and I'm desperately searching for my glasses. Now, the two little puppies are running around outside. And I meet them at the door, and I start going, where are my glasses, Jackie? Where are my glasses, Jill? And they walk with me, and I go look. I said, maybe I dropped them by the car when I leaned over. So I go over there, and they weren't there. And Jill and Jackie are right there, and Jackie especially looks at me. And I go, Jill, where are my glasses? She starts running, and I follow her, and she takes me to them. Yeah, she had them in a little hiding spot in a bush, and she took me to them. And then she looked up at me. And I said, man, these people, they speak English. Oh, wow. And the glasses weren't even, you figure, oh, no, she chewed them up. No, not at all, nothing. The lenses weren't even scratched. And I said, thank you, Jackie, for finding my glasses, but taking them first and then finding them. I forgot about the taking part and thanked her. So that's my little dog and man story today. And remember this. The idea that man is dog's best friend was not made up by dogs. It was made up by men. And if you see the way some dogs get treated, I can understand why they would like that rescinded. Now, Jackie and Jill might say, Greg is my best friend. And your dog might say that whatever your name is his best friend. But this idea that man is dog's best friend is not true. Right. So we got 3 ominous signals appeared recently, according to Michael Snyder. And we're going to get into this. I like talking about finances because I don't have any. And it makes me feel like I'm part of the world, even though I don't have any. So I'm going to imagine that I have millions of dollars to invest. And if you believe it, it's true, right? Got into an argument with somebody the other day. I said, my life is a failure. They go, oh my goodness, no. Look at what you've accomplished. Look at what I said, our lives are failures. We're in the bottom class of everything. I said, that's the way the world views us. Oh boy, and the person almost started crying. How can you say that about yourself? You're not a failure. I said, I am a failure according to the world. I don't consider myself a failure, but the world does. And when you're measured by the world, I'm a failure, and I'm going to admit it. Not me. I don't think I am. Oh, but you've got to have a better self-esteem. I said, something? I lost my self-esteem a long, long time ago. And I'm still looking for the steam, to get it back. But anyway, So I'm thinking, how does the world view my life? And maybe that's a good way you should look at your life too. So let's start, and then we'll get to the finances. Now, let's say the financial world was coming down on me. Now, think it's coming down on you, and they're evaluating you. They would look at you and go, well, I don't know your situation, but they'd look at me and they go, oh, he's a train wreck. He's got no money. He's got nothing. He didn't prepare for retirement. What if I told him I didn't want to retire? And then they'd say, well, you're stupid. Who wants to work? And I said, well, I've got projects to do. I've got things planned. I got books to write. I promised myself I was going to write my first book at 30. Then I put it off to 40. Now you know how old I am. So, God, I'm way behind. But remember John Steinbeck. He didn't start writing until he was in his mid-60s. So there's hope yet. But anyway, the financial world looks at me as a failure. What about the spiritual world? They look at me as bankrupt. I don't go to a church. I don't do anything outside of maybe talk about the Bible, but they don't like that. They say, don't talk about the Bible. I'm evaluating what my spiritual initiation to the world was Catholicism. I'm looking at how would my bishop consider me. He'd say, 1, he is a train wreck. 2, he has no spiritual morality because he doesn't follow Catholicism. He's a lost soul. He's a heretic. And he spreads lies about the Jesuits in the Vatican. He should go to hell. That's how the world of Catholicism views me. Now, what else is left? You got spiritual, you got financial, political. I come out and say the government is as corrupt as hell. They hate me. They think I'm a failure because I don't buy into the Hegelian dialectic of the left and the right. I haven't joined a party. I've never voted. Never once. Now, I'm not going to say I was enlightened at a young age, but I'll tell you, it was partial stupidity when I was young. And then much of my midlife, well, it was about 7 years, I was out of the country, so I didn't vote, didn't want to vote. And then once I learned about the government, I said, I'm not voting. So I kind of lucked out. I could say, well, I knew this from the beginning, but it's not true. So the government and the political world would say he's crazy. He's not. He should join one of the. If you want change, you got to vote. You got to join the Republicans, join the Democrats, right? Well, no, that's buying into the beast system. But they say, hey, you're a failure. So I'm a failure. The world considers me a failure on all counts. Now, the big question. I know if I was sitting in a Christian room now with a bunch of Christians, Bible-believing Christians like myself. Now, people are going to, Greg, you've never admitted that. Well, listen, I believe in the Bible. Just I don't read it as much as most people do, and that's one thing I want to work on. But I have a hard time reading it. I don't know why. I like when people read it to me that are truthful, not the Vatican priests, but like really people I like in the Christian world. When they read it, I really like it. For some reason, it resonates with me better. Maybe I should I imagine they have a King James Bible. Oh no, here come the rowdies. The rowdy sisters. But they're out playing. But anyway, I wish I could go out and play like that. Listen, it'd be fun. Now they're going to growl and I'm going to have to argue with them. But no, we're going to think positive. But anyway, they must have a Bible. Don't they have a Bible that you can, the audio Bible of the King James where I can listen to somebody? But then again, it better not sound like my voice. Better not sound like my voice. But anyway, boy, can I waste time. I got a show that I wrote, I was going to do it 2 weeks ago. It's called Wasting Time. And I'm going to do it one of these days next week. A whole show on how to waste time. I'm probably one of the biggest violators, and I was asked to be at a Wasting Time convention as winning their prize as the one who wasted more time than anyone in the year 2016. They do it a year in advance, so it was 16. But I've eclipsed that in 17, so maybe I can. I asked them, can I win twice? But I'll tell you about the convention next week and my speech, the whole thing. Very interesting. It was a waste of time. But anyway, Michael Snyder, we got to get serious. He says this is the last financial crisis ever. What's going to happen after? Nobody's going to have any money? Well, I'm pretending I have money now. So he says, we have not seen a leadership reversal, a Hindenburg omen, or a Titanic syndrome signal all appear simultaneously since just before the last financial crisis. Does this mean that a stock market crash is imminent? Not necessarily, but as I have been writing, says Mr. Snyder, about quite a bit recently, the markets are certainly primed for one. On Wednesday, the Dow fell another 138 points, and that represented the largest single-day decline that we've had since September. Much more importantly, the downward trend has been developing over the past week appears to be accelerating. Just take a look at the chart I've provided. Well, you can't see it, but yes, it is accelerating. Could we be right on the precipice of a major move to the downside? John Hussman certainly seems to think so. Who's he? He's an analyst. He's the one that pointed out that we have not seen this sort of threefold sell signal since just before the last crisis. The following comes from Business Insider. That's what I like. See, a person with money like me, like all this money, I got to keep up on it. You know, should I put all my money into China? Or where else? Maybe into some Asian market? I'm going to talk to my financial advisors tomorrow. But on Tuesday, the number of New York Stock Exchange companies setting new 52-week lows climbed above the number hitting new highs, representing a leadership reversal. That's what it is. I was wondering what he was getting at. That Hussman says highlights the deterioration of market internals. Stocks also received confirmation of two bearish market breadth readings known as the Hindenburg omen and the Titanic syndrome. Hussman says that these three readings haven't occurred simultaneously since 2007, when the financial crisis was getting underway. It happened before that in 1999, right before that dot-com crash. That's not very welcome, is it? In fact, every time we have seen these three signals appear at once, there has been a market crash. Will things be different this time? He says we shall see. If you are not familiar, well, I'm not familiar with the Hindenburg omen or the Titanic syndrome, here are a couple of pretty good, concise definitions. Yes, please do this. A sell signal is a Hindenburg omen. A sell signal, why did they do that? Because the Hindenburg blew up? A sell signal that occurs when the New York Stock Exchange new highs and new lows exceed 2.8% of advances plus declines on the same day. On Tuesday, they totaled more than 3%. A sell signal, Titanic syndrome. A sell signal triggered when the New York Stock Exchange 52-week lows outnumber 52-week highs with 7 days of an all-time high in equities. Stocks must recently hit a record on November 8th. How did they come up with this? I have no idea. You can see I think they try to confuse you. You can see the other times in recent decades when these three signals have appeared simultaneously on this chart. You can't see it. I can see it. Believe me, that's what it says. Once again, past patterns do not guarantee that the same thing will happen in the future. But if the market does crash, it should not surprise anyone. Where's it going to crash? Who's it going to get crashed with? I thought when you crash, you got to hit something. What are you going to hit? Rock bottom? Okay. 10 days ago, Mr. Snyder published an article entitled "The Federal Reserve Has Just Given Financial Markets the Greatest Sell Signal in Modern American History." I pointed out that this stock market bubble was created by unprecedented central bank intervention, and now global central banks are reversing the process that created the bubble in unison. There's no possible way that stock prices can stay at these absolutely absurd levels. They're very high now, by the way, without central bank help. And if global central banks stay on the sidelines, a market decline would seem to be virtually inevitable. Meanwhile, we are all witnessing a very alarming flattening of the yield curve. Wow. Maybe it's better not to have money. Man, you could spend your whole life, it's a whole new language. You could spend your whole life just chasing after money, right? And what does the Bible say about that? Isn't money supposed to be the root of all evil? But how come it's so important to everybody? Does that mean evil is important? Hogan said the market is nervous. Now, I am going to say this. I do not like when people start giving human traits to non-human things. A market is nothing. It doesn't have a heart, a soul. It doesn't have a brain. It's a market. How can it be nervous? Now, what is it? Could it be the people in the market? But what market? Is it a supermarket? What is it? What kind of market? A stock market? How can you have a supermarket and a stock market? Both are markets. I thought a market is supposed to be where you buy food. And then I have to look up the word market, which I'm not going to do, and then it'll prove me wrong. But the market is nervous. I can see, you go outside the stock exchange and the building is shaking. About the flattening difference between the 2-year yield and the 10-year Treasury yield, which have been moving closer together. The curve dipped to 68 basis points Tuesday, a 10-year low. Hogan said 70 has become a line in the sand. And when it falls below that, traders get nervous. Well, now we know the traders get nervous. A flattening curve can signal that the curve will invert, which historically means a recession is on the horizon. If a yield curve does end up inverting, that will be a major red flag. Now, my question to you people is, how many of you invest in the market? Not your supermarket. Everybody invests their time in the supermarket, but in the stock market. I've never been in a stock market. I've never invested in a stock market. And I know there's a lot of people that never do either. So why should we be involved in this? Why do we have to go through a recession if they're the ones in the market? It only should be for the people that go to the stock market that are in the recession. We should be not in a recession because we don't go to their market. Doesn't that make sense? It makes more sense than what I'm reading because I don't know what he's talking about. But that's why I'm doing it, because nobody knows. It's all contrived. What I do is I just look to see where the big money's going. And lately it's not staying in the United States. So that tells me there's going to be a problem. And the reason is the big people want to make money somewhere else, and they're going to let all us poor people starve to death here. Because we ain't even going to be able to go to the supermarket anymore. And they don't care. So how do I care about the yields going up and down? And I mean, when I don't have any money to eat. So my main concern first is the supermarket. And then, we can deal with, for example, according to Mr. Snyder, just check out what Karen Cavanaugh of Voya Financial is saying. Just what I wanted to do. I'm just going to read the paragraph, then we're taking a break. Now that the earnings season is wrapped up, markets are more beholden to macro data. Weakness in oil prices and skepticism about the passing of a tax bill also are weighing on sentiment, said Karen, it's a senior market strategist of Voya Financial. Thank you, Karen. I think I understand what you're saying. The big guys control everything. We don't control nothing, right? How about if I wanted to invest? What would you recommend? I mean, where do you want me to put my pennies? And can you put pennies into the market? I can go into a supermarket and buy something with a nickel. Can I do it at the stock market? No. That's why I don't go there. And I bet many other people can't go there for the same reason. Because it's only for rich people. Oh, no it's not. Well, we'll see in the next half hour. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, that was a quick 3 minutes, and we're back on the investigative journal. I can't take much more of this financial stuff, can you? Let me just read the last paragraph, and then I'll read to you who Michael Snyder is. The truth is that a market decline is way overdue. If central banks had not pumped trillions upon trillions of dollars into the global financial system, there's no possible way that stock prices would have ever gotten so high. And now that the central banks are removing the artificial life support, we shall see how markets do on their own. And he thinks they're going to go way, way down. Now, guess who this guy is? He's a Republican candidate for Congress in Idaho's 1st Congressional District. And you can learn how you can get involved in this campaign. Just what I wanted to do. Thank goodness. On his official website. I'm glad it's official. Now, what do you mean official? I have a website. Have I ever said I have an official website? Well, yes, I have an official website too. And he wrote a new book, Living a Life That Really Matters. You see what I'm talking about here? It matters because he's a Republican. It matters because he's got a lot of finances. See, now that just ends what I was talking about. He would look at me as a failure. And he would say, you're living a life that really doesn't matter. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for my building up my self-esteem. Okay. Where can we go from here? It's a Friday. We got about a half hour to go. My goodness, can I make it through another week? Sometimes I wonder about it, you know. I get to before I started this show, I said some really telling things to myself. Why are you doing the show for so many years? Can't you think of anything else to do? And then I started thinking, well, I could think of something else to do, but why do I do it? And I think it's gotten to be a habit. That's all. Because it surely isn't for the money. And it surely isn't for the recognition of my colleagues. And it surely isn't for wanting to get, what do they give radio hosts that are the best in the world? They give you a golden microphone or something. That's not why I do it. I don't know why. And I started saying, and nobody even cares anymore. They don't join my contests. I get very few listeners even contributing anymore. It's almost as if I'm out on an island going, hey, I'm over here somewhere. Come on and get me, will you? And then I sit on this island. I feel like Tom Hanks in that Castaway movie. You know, pretty soon I'm going to get a little... I'm going to get myself a soccer ball. I'm going to paint a face on it and call it Wilson. Talk to Wilson on the radio. That's who listens to my show, Wilson. But anyway, stop feeling sorry for yourself. It's Friday, and you know things are better. Going to be better tomorrow. That's what everybody says, and it never gets better. Everybody says, "Oh, it'll be better tomorrow." How come it's gotten worse and worse and worse in my lifetime? Every day that I look at the world, it gets worse and worse. It should be getting better and better, according to people, but it doesn't. So what kind of advice am I getting? Terrible advice. Now, I did promise that I was going to give you 100% proof why we're going to get into a major conflict with North Korea. And I'm going to provide some shocking analysis done by a pretty smart guy. I think he is. Now, everybody's going to have a different take on this. And what I'm going to say is this. Okay. I don't know if you've been following the news. I have to because I got to have something to talk about. But, you know, I've never seen saber rattle. You know, this is to the point where something's got to give, right? Between North Korea, China, America, Russia. This whole thing is set up. There's an orchestration going on. And it isn't in the symphony hall. It's in the war room strategies of the Jesuits. They're long overdue for a huge conflict. They got to shed blood, you know, and they're getting tired of this drip, 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 drip New World Order plan. They want something big. Let's get it over with. Here it comes. So, what are people going to say? When I say, yes, there's a 100% chance there's a North Korean conflict and many people are going to perish. One, there'll be a group of people that say, I'm a fearmonger. I'm just instilling fear. Nothing's going to happen. Two, people are going to say, you are an insider. You're spreading this information because you work with the Jesuits. I know people will say that. How do they know who I am? I don't blame them. Think of anything you want. Then there's going to be people that say, you know, maybe he's right. I've been reading the same things. And maybe it's time. Because I believe that all the wars that America has been involved in its 200 and some year history have been orchestrated. We've never been without war. Well, we have for 20 years of our existence. We've been involved in the Middle East for how many years? People are dying there every day for 17 years, 16 years. And then what about before that? What about the Vietnam War? People don't even, you know what? They don't even remember the Vietnam War anymore. Except when you talk to Vietnam vets. They remember it, and I remember it. I wasn't a Vietnam vet. You know my story. I almost was. But let me tell you this. I used to say this. I said, you know, if we don't learn from that war, and I'm only talking about, I guess if I lived during the Revolutionary War, I'd say the same thing. But I didn't live then. So I said, if we don't learn from this war and get out of this kind of nation-building warmongering, this country will not survive. And I'll tell you what, when I said that, I was a youngster running around with long hair and a hippie jeans. and, wanting peace and love and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't know anything about the Jesuits or how they orchestrated wars, but now I do. And now I see what I should have seen back then, that it's never going to end until they get what they want, and then they will be destroyed. That's my thinking. But I don't know. I mean, I can understand everybody's point of view when I say that we're 100% into Korea, we're going to get involved in Korea, because in a sense, if it doesn't happen, then maybe I am spreading fear, right? I mean, I can't be sure, but I mean, all the signs are there. And why should you be frightened? I mean, it's better to be prepared. I always say this, and it's a very old expression, you should know it, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Okay? So, with that, let's get to that story. Okay, here we go. Let me read the headline of the story sent to me, and I put it in my North Korea file. I'm very organized. North Korea, 100% proof something will happen. Nuclear war, martial law, 2017. And here we go. North Korea says that unprecedented deployment of 3 U.S. aircraft carriers groups taking up a strike position around the Korean Peninsula is making it impossible to predict when nuclear war will break out. By September, U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un were trading insults. Trump called Kim Little Rocket Man and was labeled a mentally deranged dotard. In return, that's what he said about Trump. North Korea has called Donald Trump a lunatic after he moved to prepare U.S. bombers the first time since the end of the Cold War. So why do you think there isn't going to be something? I mean, they don't do this stuff cheaply. I mean, they want to make money on this. North Korea has called Donald Trump a hooligan and a lunatic after the U.S. reportedly put its nuclear bombers back on 24-hour alert for the first time since the end of the Cold War. Why was it a Cold War? Why not a hot war? I always wondered why they called it the Cold War. Some really smart guy who studies political science will tell me. But I don't like it, Cold War. I'm going to call it the lukewarm war, or the tepid war, or the freezing war. Okay, a B-52 aircraft could soon find themselves permanently laden with nuclear weapons. That's a funny way of saying it. And parked next to the runways on air bases waiting for the order to attack. The Sun reports. An editorial by North Korean government news agency KCNA said, dignitaries of White House and State Defense Department of the U.S. are having a hard time cooling Trump overheated with a war fever. But only the South Korean puppet forces are fanning up the lunatic fingering a nuclear button. North Korea's UN ambassador Ja Song-nam said in a letter to Secretary General Antonio Guterres Monday that the joint military exercises are creating the worst ever situation around the peninsula. He also said the U.S., us, it ain't me, I ain't involved in this, has reactivated round-the-clock sorties with nuclear-capable B-52 strategic bombers, which existed during the Cold War times. Ja said the large-scale nuclear war exercises and blackmails, which the U.S. staged for a whole year without a break, make one conclude that the option we have taken was the right one and we should go along the way to the last. Oh, that is pretty obvious of what they want to do. Of course, the United States did not pull the trigger. At the end of the day, Nixon found what every president has encountered. Solutions in North Korea are all or nothing. The rogue nation is too threatening to target with small military measures, while actually effective strategies would rely on massive military attacks using weapons of mass destruction. Kissinger called this dilemma the extreme end of possibilities. Today, we can learn some grim lessons about what has changed in Asia and what hasn't changed by comparing what we know about Nixon's plans with the current situation. Every president has come to this moment with North Korea, and now it's his turn. Trump has moved nuclear assets around the global chessboard. Maybe it's a display of brinksmanship. Maybe he really is preparing for action. In any case, many people are understandably fretting over his actually using them. Few are asking why and how the Pentagon would employ them. That's where the Nixon memo comes in. as a springboard of this unsettling conversation. Nixon's plan to nuke North Korea was called Operation Freedom Drop. The memo that conceived it, Nuclear Contingency Plan for North Korea, had the stated purpose to provide pre-coordinated options for the selected use of tactical nuclear weapons in North Korea. Now the jargon gets obtuse and controversial here, but for the purpose of this discussion, any nuclear attack that doesn't involve reducing entire cities to ash is tactical. In 1969 and in 2017, the Pentagon goal is and was not to exterminate North Korean cities and resettle the land a couple hundred years from later. Rather, the plan was to use small-yield nukes to defang the dangerous North Korean military. The Nixon memo showed the Pentagon didn't see an easy way to destroy the North Korean Air Force without resorting to a wider war over the entire peninsula. There were too many air bases to strike, not enough U.S. planes to fly over them without risking an extended campaign and high casualties. Now, isn't it amazing? The Defense Department declined to discuss contingency plans or the status of Tomahawks. I tell you, we're a nation, a first-class nation, and we're still using Tomahawks? How do you expect to win anything anymore? Or other weapons systems in the Northeast Asia? The U.S. military must always maintain a high state of readiness to counter any threat, to include those from North Korea. To be prepared order for U.S. forces came on the heels of a series of provocative missile launches and a nuclear test by the rogue power. On July 3rd, North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of hitting U.S. territory. 2 months later, North Korea tested what it described a thermonuclear weapon. It claimed that, if true, would vastly increase the destructive power of Pyongyang's nuclear arsenal. Defense Secretary James Mattis, he's a pretty tough guy, he's a Marine, right? Has warned that any threat to the United States, including the territory of Guam or to U.S. allies, will be met with a massive military response. And Mattis said last month that the response needn't jeopardize U.S. and Korean civilians in Seoul. But he declined to say what those military options could be. And that's kind of Trump's strategy. When they ask him, what are you going to do? He says, I ain't telling you. It's like telling the enemy. That's a good way to put it. Washington has conducted military drills with South Korean and Japanese allies, sent attack submarines to South Korean ports, and flown strategic bombers over South Korea and off the North Korean coast. Yet Kim and his predecessors have avoided the ultimate showdown despite plenty of low-intensity skirmishes over the years. That's a sign that the regime has an overarching focus on survival, said Young Suk Lee, Deputy Assistant Director of the CIA's New Korean Mission Center. The last person who wants conflict is actually Kim Jong-un. He wants to rule peacefully for a long time and die, Lee said. Taking on the United States is not conducive to his longevity. Earlier Monday, in brief remarks to reporters, Song was asked about the risk of war against North Korea. He said defense ministers bring a special perspective to the problem. Now, let's look a little bit deeper here. They're looking at this from the mainstream point of view. But if he gets the order to fire and they want to start a conflict, it isn't coming from where you think it's coming from. And if they want to start a huge war to get the New World Order moving, they will do it. And I think that's what's up. We understand that the very weight of engaging in a war, he said through a translator, as such, we will make all efforts necessary to resolve the issue as an economic and diplomatic way as possible. Yeah, these guys are, the two leaders, they're real diplomatic, aren't they? One calls one a lunatic, the other is a little rocket man, and you think they're going to come up with something. That's what's going on here. Whether the world's first attempt at limited nuclear war remains limited depends on the effectiveness of the cruise missiles, and even more so, intelligence gathering. It would take many hidden mobile ballistic launchers to survive the first strike for wreak havoc major Asian cities. So the North Korean nuke game is all or nothing again, right? The conventional wisdom has been that the U.S. and its allies in the area need to launch a massive attack with all of its risks or no attack at all. The words of President Trump and Japanese President Abe See, I pronounced it right. I could have said Abe. That's the way he spells it, Abe. Have been strident. But the words are backed by movements of military hardware. So question remains. And let me tell you about names. It reminds me of a story. When I used to be a newsreader for a radio station, you get all these crazy names, but they have pronunciations on them for you so you don't mess them up. I still messed up a few. So the question remains, will Trump make the ultimate gamble and make the use of small nuclear weapons part of a response or even a first strike? Now, and how many lives are at stake depending on the answer? If you are an ordinary person, are you an ordinary person? Am I an ordinary person? Then you can prepare yourself for war by moving to the countryside, building a farm, but you must take guns with you, as the hordes of starving will be roaming. Also, this is the writer, not me talking. Also, even though the elite will have their safe havens and specialist shelters, they must be just as careful during the war as the ordinary civilians, because their shelters can be compromised. Very interesting. Here we go. So what do you think, folks? What do you really think? Do you think there's going to be a conflict? And what we're talking, doesn't matter what we think. I mean, we can't be sure of anything, but we can look at the signs of how the Jesuits and the Vatican have operated in the past. They could be doing this to create more fear, to get your eye off the ball and doing something completely different while they crash the economy. Or there could be some strikes from people we don't even know, like ISIS and things like that they've created, that could take out the power grid. There could be some huge natural disasters that they aren't natural, that are caused by weather manipulation. Could be a pandemic outbreak that they create. Could be just about anything. But one thing we know is if their goal is a one world order, one world government, they have to change the way the United States is at the present time. Although the States is weakening, it's not like it used to be. Their strategy is to get rid of all nationalistic countries, to break down borders, to maybe even use we haven't even talked about the Muslim strategy that they're using against us, of creating this hatred and creating these terrorist cells in America that are there to overthrow this country, and they're being allowed by the FBI and the CIA and everything else to exist. Why do you think we allow Fethullah Gulen here to live in the Pocono Mountains? He's one of the biggest terrorist threats. He's a jihad. He's a Sharia law crazed man. He's wanted in Turkey. Why haven't we removed him to Turkey? Because that told me right there Trump isn't on the level. Because, Erdogan's been asking for him for years because he created that problem in Turkey. And it's been misreported here in America, completely ass backwards. Now, if Trump was on the level, he'd have turned over. He'd get rid of Erdogan right away. But he's allowing him to live in the Pocono Mountains like he always does. Millions of dollars creating all these crazy mosque schools that are fronts for these Muslim takeover in America. Yes, people. That's what's happening here. Now, guess who brought him over? In the 90s, it was the Clintons. And guess what Trump just said about the Clintons? To tell you enough. Remember his campaign rhetoric? We're going to put her behind bars and Bill Clinton, blah, blah, blah. And the other day he just said, the Clintons are really good people. I don't want to hurt them at all. Oh, my God. Do you know how many people the Clintons have murdered? I mean, not personally, but it's kind of like a mafia boss. Is he responsible for the murders he orchestrates? And Trump calls them good people? And you think Trump is on your side? I mean, give me a break. There comes a time when you got to put two and two together. And, 2 and 2 always comes together for the right answer when you do it. But people don't want to do it. It's too difficult, too hard to live that way. So they just fall in lockstep. All they want to do is be obedient workers. All they want to do is follow what the man says. Don't think on your own. It's too difficult to think on your own. Hell, That would be asking way too much. And you know, this idea of takeover, what about the idea that America's already been taken over? It's just a slow drip, drip, drip before everything just goes to hell in a handbasket. That's a possibility. Look at, there's nobody who's out there really trumpeting the truth behind all this stuff. You see groups of millions of people getting back, getting against it. We've had enough. No. I think they realize they can just run right over America any way they want. And they're thinking of the most brutal ways to do it, I think. But anyway, we're almost all out of time this week. Isn't that a shame? You get down to the last minute of the show and you go, boy, I wish I had more time. But I really don't wish I had more time today. I've had enough time to think about this stuff. I'm going to forget about it all weekend. Don't you think you deserve it? I deserve that. If they're talking about it so much. A weekend without worrying about it. And I really don't worry about it anymore anyway. But I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to enjoy the next 2 days, and then I'll see you Monday, and we can start up again, right? We can start it all over again. In fact, I got a minute to go. And in that minute, I want to thank those who listen to the show all the time. I don't know a lot of you who do. And then I want to not thank those who don't listen. Let's just be honest about it. Why should I thank people who don't listen? I think you should listen, because you could learn one thing, that there's more to this story of what's happening in America, and there's more to all the wars we've been involved in than we've been told. And it's pretty good information to figure it out, try to figure it out. And you get a lot of good things here regarding that. And in the past, I interviewed a lot of good people regarding the same thing. And you can go back and get those shows. And don't forget to hit the donate button at Greg Anthony's Journal at .wordpress.com. And we're a listener-sponsored station, and I'd really appreciate it. And look, you too, have a good weekend. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you on Monday on the Investigative Journal. See you then.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.